My 11 Circle presents Cricbuzz Live. This is around the time we'd probably been sneaking in to review what would have happened in the first innings. Well, that's not to be. There wasn't going to be one or two innings. In fact, the match has been called off without even a toss, and it looked pretty bleak from what we heard at the ground and what we saw around. The weather forecast, the weather that's been coming in has not been great for the game of cricket. So we speculated slightly about what the two teams might be feeling. But now's the time to actually see what might be going on in those dressing rooms. Joy Bhattacharjya, Robin Uthappa with me. Speculation's one thing, now that it's reality. We saw images of the team walking in with board games in hand, different things to keep themselves busy, but now the reality will have hit.
Yeah, I think so. I think both teams came in feeling and thinking that the game may not happen. Obviously, they knew it's going to be a rain-curtailed game as well. So I just think that it's unfortunate for both teams. I think from my perception, I think it's a little unfortunate for Bangladesh because I think they would have really liked to have played this game.
And also you can see just in terms of points lost, this time they've been realistic about when to cut it off, but call it off. What's happened with the points table? Let's just quickly look at that and evaluate 1 point each, which means Sri Lanka sneak with that extra second no result for them. So they're in an even number of points, but with 2 no results. And Bangladesh are on 3 points. We've had, in the history of the World Cups, the number of matches been abandoned without even a toss has been 2 in across all World Cups, and now we've had 2 in a week.
No, I have 2 very important words for you. It's called reserve days. I mean, this is ridiculous to have a tournament where you come once every 4 years, come together and not have a situation where you can have a reserve day. Remember, reserve days saved a lot of the games in 1999, where you remember an India-England game that was removed. In fact, I was just looking around 6th, 7th of June was the last match which was abandoned, which was the match between New Zealand and Zimbabwe, I think was abandoned. They tried to play it, but over the 6th and the 7th. They tried to play it over 2 days. It couldn't happen. They washed out. You cannot have a tournament of this stature. Today, Bangladesh will go back and think they have one more washout like this. And they'd say, we might have beaten Sri Lanka. We could have had another result. We could have been a semi-finalist. So, I'm sorry, for whatever it's worth, you have to give top-level teams or teams preparing for 4 years, you cannot allow them the opportunity that games can get washed out and there's no chance to play it again. I'm sorry. That's bad scheduling.
Yeah, I think that's I saw a lot of conversations happening on Twitter, etc., about people saying that the counterpoint to that was because of the format, each team playing 9 games, if you were to schedule reserve days, we'd be going into August.
Well, no, but I think it's not like these guys don't have these games are well spread out for each team. It's not like they're playing back-to-back games. But given an opportunity to Bangladesh, if you ask them if they had to play a back-to-back game in such a scenario, I'm sure they would choose to do it. Because of actually what it means to each one of those players in that team. So I think either sides would have wanted to play this game. It would have served them well to have played this game and have a result and have 2 points either way, instead of having just 1 point and splitting it.
No, absolutely. And also, you're in England. England, everything is 4 hours away, 5 hours away. You drive through the night. It's not as if it's like India. You're playing a match in Guwahati.
And you're having to book 20 different flights.
Yeah, it's not a question like that. You can drive around here. It's not that difficult. And so I just find it difficult because English weather, it's not as if, we are suddenly waking up to the fact that English weather is like this. I mean, it has been for the past 5,000 odd years that we know of. So, there's no reason to believe that this year it won't rain. So I just find it a bit perplexing that we do not have a solution for it,
And the scary part is that what we've been hearing, it's expected to be one of the wettest Junes in history.
Yes.
We know June is still relatively wetter than anyway June, July or August, which are the traditional summer months. So, I don't think they can change halfway, but if they could, they would.
They wouldn't now. They can't now. But definitely, I think the next time they have a World Cup there in England, I'm sure they would consider that. But in hindsight, considering how forecasts well beforehand, considering how that well beforehand, you'd think that they would keep aside reserve days for situations such as these, because this is now. But say it's a qualification game, and then two teams are contending to qualify, and then if that gets rained off, and then the team that isn't contending plays the game the next day and then qualifies, then it's going to really bite someone in the bottom.
Yeah, and there's no real dry season you can think of playing the game in. Obviously, in traditionally, India would play their cricket in the peak of winter. Now you've had situations where you're having to play with the retreating monsoon in Chennai in October and so much cricket happening, but
Absolutely.
you can still play around that.
See, when we worked on the under 17 football World Cup, which I was handling, one of the first things FIFA did was they needed a 30-year report on the rainfall in October in each of the venues. So that you have to go and see, and remember, this is football. Football, you can play in conditions like that. You still had a report saying that there are an average of 11 days of rain in this thing. There's 12 days of rain out here. And in fact, the venue we were most scared of was Guwahati. And one match got rained out. But
Close to the rainiest place on earth.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is you have to, and this is an under 17, it's a FIFA World Cup, it's an under 17 World Cup. This is a tournament where billions see around the world. I have no reason to believe that they wouldn't have planned for such, situations. That's all.
Points to ponder. We've briefly touched on Bangladesh, Sri Lanka too. Now that they've got an even number of points, they'll be thinking the rain's following them around. I know they come from they're probably the rainiest test playing nation going, but they won't have been expecting that in a situation like this in a big World Cup.
Well, I'm sure everyone is anticipating rain, because when you go to England in this time of the year, you know sometimes you're gonna experience rain from time to time.
But it's generally, as you said, time to time. It's sometimes that intermittent drizzle that
comes and goes, But this has been, like you said, the wettest June in years together. So, don't be surprised if other games are going to be washed out as well.
Yeah. See, the cold front is coming in from continental Europe, and at this point in time, I don't think continental Europe wants to do Britain a favor. Let's look at it that way.
Yeah, they want the weather. If only Theresa May could have figured out that Brexit meant the weather as well. But no, I'm sure that wasn't part of the deal. But that's the way it goes. Absolutely no play, not even a toss happening at Bristol. But the real thought is there going to be more rain around? Because remember, the venues we are talking about, we talked about the geography of England, Cardiff, Bristol, Taunton, and even up to London, where the M4 finishes, is all in one area. And England's not a huge country, since we talked about driving from one place to another. So Taunton in Somerset is not too far away either. And the feeling is there's a bit of cloud cover around. And if a game of this magnitude, Australia-Pakistan always had classic fixtures. These are the two teams who, of course, clashed in the 1999 World Cup final in England. So if that gets affected by weather, that's going to be a killer for the tournament for these two teams.
Absolutely. And of course, under these circumstances, what Pakistan will hope is get as short a game as possible. Under the circumstances, I still think Australia is a slightly stronger team than at this point in time. And they'll take their chances. So I think, again, at least in this game, I think Pakistan would look at it and say, we don't mind taking a point of Australia and going forward. Whereas today, both would have thought, I would have liked to win today,
Yeah. But let's just quickly look at the points table for both Australia and Pakistan, because we showed it to you earlier. We were only focusing on two teams. Australia sitting at 4 after 3 games, and Pakistan at the moment on 3 from 3. And as you could say, they'd go level with Australia, or not level. Australia would get to 5, Pakistan to 4. But Robin, you'd have to say Pakistan wouldn't mind sneaking that point before playing India.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Pakistan would definitely be, wanting to win that game. As unpredictable as they are, you never know what they might go out there and pull off. But having said that, like Joyda was saying, I think, they prefer a shorter game. Because that doesn't give Australia to have an opportunity to come back into the game in case something goes wrong with the Australian lineup tomorrow, the match per se for Australia. But having said that, I think Pakistan will want to focus on the positives, on what they've done well and what they can go out there and produce tomorrow. But they would be, I think all teams would be worried about, rain playing a factor in this tournament right now.
Yes, and they've had a bit of a break, which they wouldn't have wanted. They had a fabulous win. It's been a roller coaster for them. They started miserable fashion against the West Indies. 7 wickets doesn't really tell the story of that particular victory. Winning by 14 runs against England, that was fantastic at Trent Bridge. Then they had the abandonment at Bristol again, where today's game was abandoned, and now they go to Taunton with more rain around. So they'll be feeling that they just haven't managed to sink their teeth into this tournament, and that momentum that they probably had against England is kind of gone.
You know what would be a good idea actually, to check back in 1992 what happened to their 4th game, because their tournament seems very similar to what happened back in 1992. They lost the first game, they won the second game, the third game was washed out.
They won the fourth.
They won the fourth game, so you never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
There you go. So that's the paddle that they'll want to stick to. In terms of team news, we've had lots of talk. We discussed Shikhar Dhawan, but in terms of Australia, they've had a side strain injury for Marcus Stoinis. Now, a side strain doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be out for a long period of time, but what they've done is they've got Mitchell Marsh coming in as a replacement in case Marcus doesn't recover quickly enough. This is what Aaron Finch has said, or respond to treatment over the next few days. We don't know how many games he'll miss. We should have a clearer picture, but it's one flight ticket. Get Mitchell Marsh in as that 16th player to be around the team, and if the replacement is there, he's already acclimatized.
I think it's fine. I think it makes sense because you're coming from so far. Australia, it's a long journey. Somebody gets off the flight. In any case, I believe exactly what Robin said, that if you have chosen 15 people, your first and natural replacement is usually within the 4 people who are not playing on a regular basis. Because why on God's earth did you select them? You selected them as backups for some reason or the other. So, so for Mitch Marsh, even to come into 11, I would definitely say somebody would feel very hard done by if somebody got off the plane from India and just walked into Shikhar's place. I can understand the situation.
Well, we've heard. Let's first have a look at Australia once again. Marcus Stoinis is the one in question. That's why we've put him in yellow. He's been playing all the games. So for now, like-for-like replacement could possibly be the other Marsh, who's not necessarily getting off a plane. Sean Marsh might just get a look in there, or would you look at one of the bowlers?
Well, I don't think they need to look at one of the bowlers, but they could go Sean Marsh's way. But where would you fit him in the batting order? That would mean that everybody else goes one wicket further down, right? So
and Maxwell becomes a full 10
exactly.
over
Maxwell
bowler.
has to bowl 10.
He has to bowl 10, and
problem is
I'd rather play Nathan Lyon there instead of having as in he can bat as well. He's no muck with the bat. He can actually bat a bit. So I'd have him down the order at number 8 and number 9 and use his bowling, because I think his bowling will be very useful for Australia, especially to have someone to support Zampa in the spin department would be good for Australia.
And what's a big bonus, and I'm not going to ask Robin this question because of our little game that we had going on, is Alex Carey showing form for them. There was a lot of talk about Australia going with only one wicket keeper, no real backup as such, but he's sort of been that X factor, an unknown in a sense for many of the teams.
Yeah, he's been very, very good for them. Even against the India match, he did a fair amount of damage. And it's nice to see, because that strong Australian wicketkeeper in the days of Gilchrist and all, you've got used to a certain type of prototypical Australian wicketkeeper batsman, which generally they haven't managed to do over the last 3, 4, 5 years. They just haven't had that consistency. So if Alex Carey comes good, it's not just for this World Cup. It's I think good for Australian cricket as a whole. And I think the kind of batting he was showing, he has a certain X factor to him.
Yeah, it seems like they've been seeking for a wicketkeeper batsman post Adam Gilchrist. It seems like he could be the one that could carry that baton for the next 10 years.
Every pun intended. Yes, of course. And they've had a few over the years. The likes of Tim Payne have been stalwarts when it comes to the big bash, but just making that one step up. Brad Haddin for the longest time. Looks like they might have just found their person. What about Pakistan? Again, we're not going to get into the discussion of which Pakistan it is. Let's assume, for their sake, it's the A team that comes up there, and they've got some decent names sitting on the bench. Haven't necessarily had to try them. Haris Sohail played early on in the tournament, then they realized the experience of Shoaib Malik coming in. I think one of the revelations has been Wahab Riaz making a comeback, making an impact, and he seems to like the Aussies, as a lot of teams do.
Well, yeah. So I think with someone like Wahab Riaz, when you look at the mindset, you think that if for him this is probably his last World Cup. He could have one more if this really goes on well for him, if the revelation keeps going on, right? But I just think that he knows that this is his last get-go. So if he gets going early, then he can really extend his career. If he doesn't, then he might have to call it quits.
Yeah, and I remember it was during the CPL, we had a wonderful chat on Cricbuzz Unplugged with Wahab Riaz, and he actually requested, he said, "Are you okay if we talk about my possible World Cup comeback?" I said, nothing wrong with that. And he actually, believe it or not, took a clip after it was posted on Cricbuzz and said, can I send it to the PCB?
Conviction plays a big factor,
Yeah,
doesn't it? I absolutely believe you need to have conviction in your ability, in what you desire and what you dream of, and only when that conviction is real, do things actually turn out to be fruitful, and everything kind of conspires in its own way to make things happen for you. So conviction is extremely important, irrespective of how old you are, what you're competing for, irrespective of any of that. Conviction is extremely important.
And the beauty was, it wasn't anything dodgy. It was just him saying, listen, I want to send a message to them. Here's something that a lot of people watch, so why can't I just do it with this?
Absolutely, and I think it's fantastic. Also, Cricbuzz did his good deed for the day, which is fantastic. But exactly, I remember parallel about 10, 12, 13 years back, when Dadi was making his comeback, and just nobody rated him, and he did this advertisement where he's talking about making a comeback and I'll do it. And everyone was saying, hey, you know what, if he doesn't make it, he looks stupid. But you have to take the risk of looking stupid if you want to make it back.
Yeah,
you have to put it out there if you want to make it back. And Saurav just did that. He did the ad, he came back, he got a double century and he went out in his own terms. I mean, and that it takes something. You have to not be scared of being embarrassed, of looking stupid, of looking, oh, you were too old to do it, why did you even try? You've got to forget all that and try. And I think exactly that's what Wahab Riaz would have done.
And since you've given the example of Saurav Ganguly, he's played administrative roles, captain, batsman, bowler, but also now he likes to play the role of selector. Because as all of you get out there for your My 11 Circle teams and get on the app, download it, pick on the team, which of course now has to be Australia versus Pakistan, the next game at Taunton. You'll know Chief Selector Saurav Ganguly is the one who's watching you. Big Dada is watching you, you can tell, and of course he is watching you with a Vada. It's called Dada Ka Vada, which simply means if you can beat him for his team selection, you can get 5 times the amount of cash. So Dada's watching as selector. But there's another little tidbit that we've been hearing. There's one Mitchell Marsh getting on a plane from somewhere in Australia coming into England. But we're hearing a certain Rishabh Pant maybe getting on a flight to get to England just as a standby for Shikhar.
It makes sense, right? I think, like Joyda was saying that earlier on, he was saying that, if someone's going to go from here, he shouldn't be played immediately. So I think it makes sense to have someone that just on standby basis, and him practice there in the nets and get accustomed to the conditions there and practice and feel like he can get going, just in case Shikhar is ruled out and he has to be replaced.
The other thing I was looking at is, if you look at it that way, you always have backups for backups. So then if you're looking at Rahul going up front, you always have a backup, because you're 3 and 4, you have Vijay Shankar, you have DK, all of these guys can play that position, so can Rahul. I'm saying you'll probably be looking at an opener, somebody like a Prithvi or Shreyas Iyer, who are more natural openers, maybe also guys they'll be looking at. But obviously, I don't know what the word on Rishabh Pant is, but look, so much is now floating around. Nobody knows what the truth is.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, the backup issue, because when the team selection happens, you're obviously looking at certain positions. KL Rahul was clearly looked at as a backup opener and then sort of slotted into that number 4 spot. But interesting point Joy makes, that if you are literally looking at a backup for Shikhar Dhawan, do you literally look at another opener, or are you happy to go with the people who are on standby, i.e. Rishabh Pant, Ambati Rayudu?
Because my point, I'll tell you what the logic is coming from the fact that if now, touch wood, one of this thing, Rohit or Rahul gets injured, then who comes in?
God forbid.
God forbid, exactly. Touch wood, it doesn't happen. But that's why I'm saying, get an opener. You need to get an opener.
Yeah, but you see, in hindsight, or people are always, someone on the other is always going to feel hard done by in these selection processes, because like I said earlier, there's so much of talent in our country, and there's so many people vying for that spot. One person deserves it more than the other, and one of them is gonna feel hard done by. A few of them are gonna feel hard done by. So you can't say that one is better than the other one's better than the other. You go with what the team management wants, what the captain likes, what the support staff likes, and they come together and they make a decision, and that should be respected, right? As in, everyone who plays cricket in India understands that luck plays a big factor. To strike at the right time under the right circumstances play a big factor. So all those aspects come into play, come to the fore in a situation like this, right? So Rishabh Pant's had a good IPL. Shreyas Iyer has had a good IPL. Ambati not so much, but you know the class of Ambati. I've seen him from the age of 17 and 18. The man's unbelievable, and I've not seen a guy with that kind of mindset. The amount of mental strength and stability that guy has is amazing. So you know there are a lot of guys that you can actually pick for a spot as a replacement. Prithvi Shaw's coming up the ranks and doing well. So you can pick one of them, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the decision that the captain feels comfortable with, and along with the team management and the support staff, and the one they have belief in, the one that they have conviction in. So I think that somebody like that would be going. And Rishabh's been the one who's, like, the country said that, you know, he's, you know, man, he should have been there. You know, India would miss that X factor if Rishabh's not there. So I think, you know, considering all situations, all circumstances, you feel like, yeah, you know, he can go. But I don't know if he'll get to play, even if he gets into the 15 as a replacement, because there are other guys who play that role really well, and play that number 4 role really well. And I still believe that Rishabh will come into his own as time goes by.
Certainly will. And also, if it had happened to the bowlers, we know that, say, Bumrah or a Bhuvaneshwar Kumar had a finger injury. You know, those replacements already sitting there in likes of Avesh
Khan.
Khan.
Have they come back? Or are they still there?
And they might just be there, but you know that is actually a requirement when a team's
So Khalil is still there for sure, is what
Khalil's still there. Yeah, that's actually good, actually.
Yeah, but see, that's an interesting one, because, you know, if you look at that bowling lineup, I think it was Khalil, there was Avesh Khan, and there was one more. I'm trying to.
Deepak Chahar was there.
Deepak Chahar was there.
Yeah.
Now, here's the question, that these guys, two reasons that they were there on the plane as backups, because they were there, they were young, they were willing to do, and they were net bowlers.
Yeah, so basically in tournaments like these, Joy,
you
want to have these bowlers, because
Correct.
you don't want to expend your fast bowlers in the nets. You want to actually spend them out only in the match. You want to preserve them.
Exactly, Robin. So my point is exactly that they would not have taken across an experienced bowler like Umesh Yadav, because they said, you know, Umesh is too senior for me to use as a net bowler.
Yeah.
So here's my point. Suppose an Indian bowler goes down, do you look at them, or do you look at bringing Umesh across from a plane? Because remember one thing, you're trying to then choose the best bowler. You're not saying that, see, Umesh is definitely among your top 6 Indian fast bowlers. You haven't got him here because he's not a 22, 23-year-old kid who'll be happy just to come to the UK and bowl in the nets. Sure. You say he's too senior, I respect him, you know, I can't have him do this. But if a fast bowler goes down, would you pick from these 3? Or would you say, I have a really experienced fast bowler sitting in India? That's my point.
But what we were told is that was the...
Do you think they'll pick from these 3?
That was what we were told initially, that they are the standby bowlers. Umesh Yadav, I've heard, is holidaying in the US. So does that give him a better chance, a la RP Singh?
Of course. Who knows?
It's not too far. I mean, if you can take a flight like Mitchell Marsh all the way from Australia to England, it's just a one quick flight across the Atlantic if you're in the US.
Yeah, but again, also they have, again, if something happens to one of our bowlers, the first person they'll be looking at is Shami before going anywhere else. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like, God forbid any of that happens to any of our players in the team. I think everyone's praying for their health and fitness, for them to stay fit and go through the tournament, because all the efforts in the last few years would have been like leading up to the World Cup, and it would be their dream and desire to represent their country in the World Cup. And once they've made it, you know, you'd want them to play the whole tournament and not miss out. Also, one of the reasons why I don't want Shikhar to come back, because he's worked so hard to earn that spot in the World Cup side, you know.
Yeah, and we know exactly. I mean, we don't even need to go back to the numbers to tell you what an impact player he is in ICC 50 over tournaments or multi-nation tournaments. So he'll be hoping that that thumb gets good very, very quickly. But thumbs up to your question, Joy. This time we need to get an answer.
Yeah, we get an answer, and it's an interesting one, because I mean, the last Indian bowler to get a 5-wicket haul was also the last Indian fast bowler to sit in the studios of Cricbuzz. It was yesterday, and the answer is Zaheer Khan versus New Zealand at Wellington 2014. And it's amazing, 5 wickets in his last test innings is not bad at all. The other guy who did really well, and somebody pointed it out, is Pragyan Ojha. Pragyan Ojha actually got a 10-wicket haul in his last test.
Last game, I think it was in Bangalore, if I'm not wrong.
Never played again. 2013 it was. Never.
Like I said,
life is
talent is so much in our country.
But it'd be interesting to see, of all, if you look back at batting and bowling performances out of people who have finished on a high, how many of them have actually been already sort of said, look, this is my last test match, whether I do well or badly, it's going to be there. And how many others just went through a bad patch after that and never played again?
Never played again, yeah. I think Pragyan after that 10 would not have thought.
That, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. What did Virubhai have? We should check what Virubhai got. Greg Chappell knew it, but Greg Chappell went out with the century. I think, but yeah.
Yes.
Gavaskar went out with 96 at
I thought you were
amazing.
talking about Greg Chappell when he was a coach.
There's another.
That's a different coach.
That would be, we need to have a few more minutes here, rain or no rain, to discuss that. That would be a fascinating topic.
And we should have a few more Bengalis out here. With Greg Chappell topic, any Bengalis, they'll just sit up. Moment Greg Chappell.
Yes. And then
We have a lot of Bengali viewers today.
Sure they would. And then we go and have a nice game of pool. That was fantastic. I mean, just to sum all that up, my one big memory of that incident in Zimbabwe was the little game of peace pool, as they called it, between the two of them, which was supposedly set up by a Bengali photographer, and then we, of course, rained on his parade. That was the end of that. Never sell an exclusive to anyone. But anyway, that's what we have. Unfortunately, we have no play today, and we need to, of course, salute our winner. We like to have a little bit of suspense. We like to have a little bit of a chat before that. And it's Tanishq Jain. Tanishq Jain, 57, is our winner. I wonder if...
I think it'll be 5th June. It won't be 57, born in 57.
5th July.
5th July. No, June. 7 is... No, 7th is July. Yeah, 7th is July. 8th
5th July. Good cancer, doesn't forget with 5th July is. Yes, indeed. So well done, Tanishq, and a valuable prize that you've earned yourself. I wonder where our friend Rohit was. Must have been sleeping, or did he come in 2 seconds too late?
I think maybe the question was too easy.
Maybe the rains got to him.
Yeah, or maybe he's just like literally, if it's slightly on the easier side, he just doesn't want to give it, or maybe he's busy trying to set questions.
I really want to see who this guy is. Huh? He's gotten really interesting, this Crick Rohit. Yeah, I'm going to go onto Twitter and look for this guy now.
Oh, you'll find him easily. You'll find him easily, and I trust you. He'll tweet to you, and maybe he'll send you a question. Okay, here's one challenge for you. Set a question on Robin Uthappa, for Robin Uthappa, and try and stump him on that. Here's a challenge to you. We like to have fun on the show when it's raining, but we really don't have much of an option. Thank you, gentlemen. We're hoping that it starts drying up for Taunton. More importantly, that it starts drying up at Trent Bridge, because that's where India take on New Zealand.
Yes,
in
let's
a couple
hope
of days' time.
none of our India games get washed out. We want all of those games to happen, because we really want to watch our boys playing.
Yes, we certainly do. Maybe if it's already raining now, which it is in Nottingham, you can just get rid of all that rain right now and have brighter conditions, because this is a bit of a weather front that's raining. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Robin.
Cheers.
That's all we have on My 11th Circle presents Cricbuzz Live. We'll be back again for Australia versus Pakistan from Taunton. Same time, same place. Don't miss it.